I see your demons, I'm telling them it's on sight. I'm just playing, I don't fight, I do pray. I only go the way of Mr. Yahweh. Try to correct me.
All right, Mr. Taylor, I'm going to totally butcher your last name. So
You're good.
I'm going to say, welcome to the podcast, brother. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing real good. Thank you for having on me.
Yeah, shout out to Brittany. Shout out to Brittany for
seriously.
getting him here. I'm super excited. By the way, that's your camera. So if
Okay,
you ever
perfect.
wanna say anything, boom.
Love it.
Yeah, this will be our camera. So for those that don't know you, give us that 1 minute rundown, 1 minute spiel of a little bit about you, brother.
I'll keep it short and then probably get into some details and stuff. So spent some time. I actually grew up in the Dallas area, and then went with sports and traveled kind of all over with the NFL. Spent about 4 or 5 years in the NFL. Tore my hip flexor. That was kind of like that transition period for me of like, okay, cool. Now it's time to get into business, which I always wanted to do. And I had some guys in the league that I was like, who was successful after sports, who made the same amount of money, if not more, usually got into business. I was like, okay, that's the route when that time comes. So that kind of was like my nice push of like, all right, this is time to transition. And then got into insurance actually first. We built a book of business, ended up selling that kind of thing, a part of that build up. And then I was like, man, I want to get around some top 1% of business owners in multiple fields. And that's how I got connected with Ryan at Apex. And that's what I do now. It's like more of the business consulting side of stuff. So,
Yeah, a lot to unpack in just that one intro. You want to start? You want me to kick it off?
No, I'll go ahead and start, man. Obviously, anytime you have a former professional athlete across from you, I think that journey within itself, just to achieve that first level before achieving your levels in business, is interesting. Talk to us a little bit about your athletic background, not so much from a sports standpoint, but maybe a habit standpoint, mindset, competitive standpoint, and how that's played into where you're at now.
100%. I mean, I think mindset for me was the biggest thing, especially in the position I was as a kicker and punter. So like that was kind of our lane, if you will. You get maybe 5, if you're lucky, 8 plays a game max. Sometimes you get 1. A couple games I had 0. I just stood on the sideline for 2 hours. So you got to stay locked in for that period of time. So that was that's where I spent all my money basically outside of training, was on mindset coaching, was on understanding how the mind worked, how the brain worked, how to understand different aspects of training that incorporated that's the whole thing. Right. And so I started to study some of these guys. I started to get with even other sports, like pitchers, golfers, like how they thought, cause it was very similar. Like you get a certain amount of plays, you have one thing, your play lasts for literally 2.5 seconds, and then you're on to the next one, right? So that's kind of everything I built, everything I do now, which in business, it's been the biggest blessing too, which I had no idea was. Because once I got done, I was like, God, I got to start all over. Like it was awful. It was a hard transition. But once I did, all that work made a massive difference too.
Actually, sorry, man. I've always wondered this about like a kicker specifically. I think I told you right before we hit
punter.
Or
both.
Yeah, both.
Punter
Yeah.
and so you made field goals and you punted.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So I've always wondered this though. I guess about the special teams unit specifically, kicker, punter. You're right. You only do get a selected number of plays. And I was saying my son wants to be an NFL field goal kicker, and we're watching like YouTube highlights of game-winning kicks, right? And talk us through, man, when you have, let's say, your third play of the game, your third rep of that day, it's fourth quarter, big punt, big field goal, and you know your time's up. And what's the mindset going into a moment like that?
Great question. Really, in those moments, there's a thing that Tony Robbins always talks about: is if you're in your head, you're dead, right? And so in that moment, that's kind of what you're trying to do. Everything else, but just be present, right? Just really for me, like what I'm doing leading up to that play, like the 3 downs before, essentially, if we do it on 4th, let's just say, is I'm breathing. I'm trying to because you're hyped, like you're just naturally getting butterflies, you're naturally getting excited, which is good because you can put that into the kick. But as soon as it gets you in your head, you forget where the ball's at. It's not what you want, right? So leading up to that, I'm getting present. I'm breathing. I'm just because your body knows what to do. Like you've trained hours and hours and hours. You can probably do it with your eyes closed to some degree. But when we get out there, it's like all the other factors are the part that can mess you up.
Yeah.
So in that moment, it's more of, okay, cool. What do I know what to do? I'd always do a stair step approach. So like I'll get there, breathe, make sure my body's loose, right? You can never be the fastest when you're tight, right? It's the same thing with flexibility wise with kicking and punting. And then the next thing I'm doing is, what's the first thing I have to do? If I'm punting, I have to catch the ball. If I don't catch the ball, I can't punt it. So I'm just focused on the nice, smooth catch. Next thing I'm doing is I'm working on my drop, then contact. I can envisioning it on the sideline, same like leading up to it. So hopefully by the time I'm on the field, I've had 4 or 5 reps mentally of what it looks like, right? So then now I'm on that repetition before I even step on the field. That's the mindset I'm going to it with, yeah.
I love that, man. I totally love that. And then I'm just curious too, man. Obviously, you're with Apex now, surrounded by a top, an A team, if you will. How much, it seems like just based upon your background, you've probably always been surrounded by some level of top competition and top dogs, if you will. And what have you learned just kind of growing up and now still being in that environment? Talk to me about like the importance of environment and influence.
I think it's everything. And going back to, we talked on before we started, is like with my grandfather, like in the sports world, he was coach for the Cowboys, Hall of Fame. Like I grew up around that. So like that environment was huge. I didn't really understand it until I got older of like how much that was. And I was the only one in my family up to this point that's played in the NFL, like, right, as a player, not as a coach. He did it at a Hall of Fame level as a coach. He's like, I want to be the person to do it as a player, right? And so for me, that environment was massive because I had the questions answered. I had the training that I needed in order to do that. He saw it at that level, Hall of Famers for that matter. And so for me, it was huge. And then the same thing went into business. Like, I have to create this again because I knew, and that was the biggest lesson I learned from sports was, I was like, what? Because I sat down for the first year pretty much. And I was like, all right, how did I get to this place of like, whatever the percentages, I don't know, it's like 0.0 something percent of playing in the NFL. And I was like, how did I get there? Like, what was the thing that made me get there? And then I looked back and I was like, you had a lot of things set up for you that you don't have set up for you in entrepreneurship or in business. You had coaches, you had like obviously teammates. So you had like your kind of board of directors, which would be called like all the different aspects of trainers, equipment manager, like all those people that were required for you to be able to do what your job is. And then we had sports science guys, we had mindset people. So we had this team that was kind of created for us. But then when I got into the business, I was like, all right, I'm starting from scratch. I don't have anybody else but me. Yeah. So like, okay, if I'm the CEO of my life, you look at a CEO, you have like all the different operations, different parts of the company. You have all the different pieces and elements that are important. It's like, I have to go create that now. And so for me, it was like, okay, in order to be the top 1% in the world, you have to have these key things. In sports, I was lucky because that was the format. When I got out of it, I was like, I have to go create that again. So environment became really important of, okay, I got to get around the right people that will say things and see things that I'm not seeing, even though they may not be. I joke with this all the time. It's like, the worst thing as a player is like, you look at a coach and like, you can't even do this. I'm not listening to you. Right? Like, that's the thing. And so, but the reality is sometimes they can see something or keep you accountable to something that you're not paying attention to. Yeah. No matter if they could do it themselves or not. Right? And so I had to get somebody like that in my life that could do that. And so when I got done, to keep me checked, because if I'm not getting constantly, what you don't actively measure, you won't actively improve. Right? So if I don't have someone that can actively measure me, I'm in trouble. Right? So that's kind of what for me was like, okay, I got to get the environment, which once I transitioned out to insurance, I was like, okay, I have to get top 1% people that think that way, because there's certain things that I don't understand in business yet that they do. And if I don't get around that, you become who you hang around. It's just the truth, right? And then sports, I'd always walk into every locker room and be like, all right, who's the guys of the Hall of Fame, like going to be Hall of Fame? Who's the guy with the Pro Bowl last year? Who are the guys that are like been in the league for a long time? There's a reason they're in there for the long time. So like I can replicate what they're doing. Yeah. It gives me a jump start on everybody else, especially as a rookie. So like that kind of stuff was the same thing I tried to take into business. And that's why I got connected with Ryan and all these other guys. It's like, I got to get in the room. If I can get in the room, the first step of like success I always talk about is like imitation. If I can just get to a place where I can imitate what it looks like, then I can start to the place of like creatively creating my own way of doing it. Yeah. But if I don't know how to do it myself, then I'm just kind of like throwing up against the walls. Like, does that stick? I don't know. Maybe not. So
I'm a big believer of imitation. And then when you imitate, when you got at least the base, the foundation of like, if I can do what they did, then you can add your own spin. I think a lot of people try to start with the creation and the creative, and then they're like, oh, it doesn't work. Oh, I tried it for 2 weeks. Oh, I tried it for a year. And it's like, no. Did you follow the process, the machine? Because they literally built it. They already did the hard work.
100%.
And then they're like, oh, well, it's because I thought that this would be better. That drives me crazy. Let me ask you a question, just because I know we're about to go business. I think So we love football, and I'm a Broncos fan as well.
Oh, nice.
Right? I know. Lately. Let me ask you something. I believe that the punter, and I'm trying to think of like specific names right now, the punter and the kicker. So I think the kicker can be one of their best offensive tools. I think of like the Justin Tucker from the Ravens. Like,
sometimes the highest scoring points.
We didn't make it. And it's like, oh, you need a 60-yarder real quick. I think he did 66 yards or 64 yards. I was like, dude, that's on the other side of the field, and you don't even have to do much in that. He just gave you 3 points and started them. But I also think the punters, you're right. In the NFL, I think what the punters, there's usually a punter and then a kicker, right? They're separate.
Yeah.
They are the best defense, in my opinion. Like a punter, bro, when they hit it and it lands on the 5-yard line, that is 3-yard line, that offense is not getting out of there. No matter how good your offense is, the chances of you getting out, very rare.
Hey, are you ready to challenge yourself? Mark your calendars for the event of the year, the Cleaning Profits Takeover Edition, happening in Denver, Colorado from September 24 to 26. Head over to event.cleaningprofits.com for all the details. For being listeners, use code CEO30 for a 30% discount. See you there.
So, here's my question. Because of that, because you just had to catch, kick, and put them on their toes, right? The other team.
Yeah.
How much attention to detail? Are you an attention to detail guy and like let's do a bunch of marketing and do all this crazy? Or are you more like a sniper type of guy where it's like, we have that one goal, we need to get around the 10 5-yard line. Okay, prepare. Boom. Like super, I don't know.
Yeah,
did that relate into business or no?
100%. And I'm definitely more on the detailed side of things for sure. Because that's how I approached it in sports was, when I'd walk out there and talk about the envisioning part, I'd sit there and okay, let's just say we're in the right hash or something like that. I'm probably going to go to the right numbers, if not try to get as close as I can to the sideline, maybe go out of bounds if they want me to. And so like I'm thinking about all of that, how I want it to land, where I want it to land. And if we're going into like inside the 10, I'm thinking about if he doesn't catch it, how do I want it to bounce? Because if he doesn't catch it and it rolls in the end zone, I just lost 20 yards on my punt on the net, right? Which is a huge hit.
Yeah, it's a huge hit.
Especially if you're hitting from like, let's just say the other 40. It's like it ends up being like a 40-yard punt, which sucks when you just punt it at 60, right? So it's like there's that I'm thinking about. Or if I'm going to do that, I may put it right out of bounds so it bounces straight out. So there's no return. So like I'm trying to think about all those different things. And then in business, the transition of it, like in business, that's what it is. Like the money is made in the details and the mundane, which the mundane is usually the details that no one wants to do.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what naturally prepared me to some degree that I never thought did.
Yeah, you just said something that I think will be applied to business because we all have mentors. You just mentioned I might want to put it inside the 10. How do I want it to bounce? Cool. He's like, unless they want me to go out of bounds. Do your coaches would your coaches depending on? I mean, they're analyzing like 500 data points, right? Do they come to you and they go, special teams coach, hey, this one I actually need you to just kick it out.
100%.
Like, just don't even put it in. Just get out of it.
Yeah, I actually had multiple times in college too. Pro's a little bit different because we had certain guys that were. You had gunners, the guys that run the side. Sometimes that was their only job on the team. So like they were freaking good at it. I'm not gonna lie. But in college, it wasn't always necessarily the case because it was like he was the DB, he's tired. You got a second guy going in, so it's like, hey, we got Tyreek Hill, which we played in college, as a returner. And if he catches it, he's probably going to make this guy miss. And then now it's I could have a chance of getting returned on me. So it's like, hey, we need you to put this out of bounds. Don't even let him return. I'll take 45 yards out of bounds versus a 60-yard bomb with a 30-yard return.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely had coaches do that for sure.
And the cool part is, did that technically affect your average?
If it went out of bounds?
Yeah.
Wherever it goes out of bounds, yeah. Like technically, if I was going to put it, let's just say I'm going in if I'm going to stand on the 30, like I go to the end zone, right? There's a couple of different ways you can look at it. If I go all the way and just try to touch back, basically, that would be 70-yard punt. Average net would be 50, roughly. So at that point, I'm either going to do that or I'm going to put it out of bounds at maybe the 45 or maybe the 55. So I'm trying to get a 55-yard net.
Yeah.
So like it does affect it, but it is depend upon like if I have to make sure I do that, especially in that situation. Because if he returns at 40 yards,
I'm out.
Yeah, it's terrible. So.
And the reason I ask that is because sometimes, and I'm sure you've seen it probably joining Apex, and we've seen it working with a mentor, sometimes we think of ourselves a lot in business, and we're like, no, but trust me, coach, trust me. Watch, I'm gonna put it on the 5, and he's not gonna catch. Like, trust me. And he's like, no, like, we're a team. Earn your stripes. Trust me. Kick it out of bounds. Been here, done that. If he catches it, especially if Tyreek Hill catches it, but if he catches it, we're toast. And I love that. That has to translate into business in the sense of, like, whoever you hitch your wagon to, Ryan Stewman, right? Mm-hmm. You trust them. You have to trust that they're looking at the big picture, whether your average goes down, because you also are thinking of the NFL. You're like, that's going to affect my average, coach. Like, I don't like that. They're going to see that.
Right.
But we don't think that as fans. We're just, he kick it out of bounds. So I think it's kind of cool that you move as a team, even though it's a very lonely position.
100%. And there was a couple of times where you did have to kind of eat that bullet, if you will, of like, man, like, you have the wind at your back, right? As a kicker, that's like the best thing in the world. You're like, oh, perfect. You know, you can bomb it. So like there's a couple of times I remember we were on our own 20, and we had probably a good 20, 30 mile an hour wind behind us. And I was like, this is a moment for like a 70-yard punt. Like, let's just net this up, right? And the coach comes over, like, all right, I want a fair catch on the 50. We're trying to waste time and make him try to fumble it. I'm like, all right, cool. Got to do what I got to do, right?
Are you sure, coach?
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
wind.
What if I just get it rolling and we get to the other 10? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm thinking about. But sometimes you have to bite the bullet and be like, all right, cool. They're the ones that, in the NFL, they're the person that will fire you. College is a little different, but it's kind of that part of it. But they do know sometimes better, because there are certain situations where I did listen to that. We got the ball back, and that's what we needed in that moment. Yeah. We didn't need a 70-yard punt on the net average sheet. We needed the ball back to go score. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
totally. I think I guess the question that keeps coming to my mind, man, is I want to talk about transition real fast. Yeah. There's a lot of transition in business. I know a lot of people that listen to our show. There's changes, there's acquisitions, there's just always movement going on. And transition can be good, it can be bad, and it can be all of the above. What was your transition like from a personal aspect, going from, living out probably your childhood dream, being in the NFL, you getting hurt, and then like trying to find a new way into business? Talk to me about the transition of identity, of mindset, and just like walk us through that. Because I know someone's listening right now, they're going through a transition in their business, and they might feel like, what's next?
Yeah.
And real quick on that, because I love that question.
I do too.
We looked at your Instagram. You no longer, I've seen a lot of former players. You don't have former NFL or former anything on your bio, do you?
Dude, I don't even remember.
I don't think so.
Dude, you don't?
Yeah.
You don't. So I find that very interesting, because most people, they attach themselves to it. I did former, and I've done that, even though I've never been an NFL player. You know what I'm saying? Like, former whatever. And I'm like, why am I, what? So, great question. And I just want to give you kudos, because obviously you've transitioned.
I had no even idea. So, yeah, thank you. But yeah, it's a phenomenal question. I was actually talking to a guy yesterday about this. And I think the biggest thing in the transition period that I had to learn, and whether it's business or anything, even when I was going from insurance to something else, it was this idea that all the hard work I had prior was going to be lost. And that sucks. Like, that's the hardest pill to swallow. It's like, I just wasted X number of years, or whatever that number is for you, and it's gone. And that's not the reality, though, but it feels the reality. Because you're like, I'm not coming to the same office, I'm not doing the same tasks, I'm not using all the same skills, I'm doing something completely different. But all those other things are what make you and separate you differently. And I'll give you an example of that. So I grew up playing all types of sports. Actually, I didn't want to kick and punt. I thought they were I want to be the guy hit, and I want to be all this thing. But I was good at it, and I liked the aspect of the pressure. I liked that. And it gave me more time on the field, right? So like, I was like, I love that. And then, but I didn't really put enough time into it really early on. I didn't know how to punt until I got to college, because they made me. And I was like, hey, we're not recruiting anybody else. We're bringing you to kick, but we also need you to learn how to punt. So I was like, all right, cool. I guess we're going to do that. And so like, but if I learned a little earlier, it would have been nice, right? It would have been great for recruiting purposes and all that stuff. But all those skills I learned playing other sports and like playing receiver. That was my dream, really. And I still have the piece of paper. I was 12 years old. I wrote down, and I was like, I want to play in the NFL. I want to play receiver, and if I have to, I'll kick. and
I have to.
Yeah. And so like, it was one of those things. I loved it. And I've developed even more love for it the more I got into it, because it became like this game of a mindset game.
Hey, what's up, guys? Today's episode is brought to you by Cinch. If you're ready to take your commercial cleaning business to the next level, we have you covered. Maybe you're struggling with how to bid, how to create professional-looking proposals, or just how to ensure your customers' accounts are actually being cleaned at night. Introducing Cinch Janitorial Software. Cinch is a simple, user-friendly software that eliminates these types of struggles that you probably know all too well. Cinch simplifies your entire process and will supercharge your success because they remove paperwork headaches while creating a scalable, efficient, and profitable cleaning business. Get your free demo of Cinch at cleancinch.com. They're here to turn your business into a success story. That's cleancinch, CINCH.com. It's simple, it's Cinch.
More so. I didn't have 80 plays. I had 8. So I was like, I've got to be pinpoint accurate. And it became like a thing of like, how do I be the top 0.01% in every little detail, right? But point being is that all those skills I thought I lost or I spent time training, that actually is what helped me become a better punter and kicker, because it made me super athletic. I became one of the most athletic punter and kickers in the country in college. And then pro day and all these different things, I started to separate myself that I thought I was like, I'm never going to use those things. Same thing in business. When I transitioned to business away from sports, I was like, man, first off, I didn't even go to the gym 6 months after I got done.
Really?
Like, didn't even go run, didn't even go work out. So I was like, I got paid to work out. Why am I working out? This is pointless. I'm just going to go do the things I do and make money, right? And then 6 months later, I was like, you're being a moron. That's the dumbest thing ever. Like, why are you doing that? And you need to be healthy, right? All this kind of stuff. But the reality of when I transitioned from sports to business, I was like, man, I lost all the things. I don't have to go to the gym to make money. I don't have to like keep my body in shape for 4 hours a day of what I had to do. I'm going to an office sitting behind a desk. I was like, this is not the same. And that transition, I thought like I lost all those abilities of attention to detail, performing at a high level, being able to navigate different emotions and be present, being able to have conversations that are tough and still perform at a high level, but have chaos all around me and still show up. Like all those things that were part of sports that I didn't realize were that big of a deal in business yet. I was like, those had been ingrained in me for years and years and years and years and years. So when I stepped into it, it was just changing the information that I spoke about. And so that became a massive piece. And so point being, long story short, of like all the different things that we think we have lost, it's just really the thing that makes us unique and separate us from everybody else. Like our history is sometimes our greatest victories in the next season that we're in, because we can't carry. Like if someone just threw you into a position, and you don't have this whole track record of development and characteristics and skills, that person may make it a week or two, but then the person that has all the depth is going to last and run all over the other person. They just will. This is how it works. And so person in that situation, I would say, is like, don't forget all the things that you've done. You will always revert back to your training. So like, don't forget all those pieces. And then also the other thing too is, when you transition into a new space, going back to your point, what we talked about, it's like you have to get around people that you can't imitate, right? Then the next phase of that is always innovate, right? But you can't innovate until you know how to imitate, right? And so that space is like, okay, cool. I'm transitioning. Who are the people that are doing it really well? Who are the people that I want to be if I'm transitioning to this? What do they do? How do they do it? And mirror that. And once you can mirror it well enough, then you can start putting on your own designs, right? Like that becomes a play. So a person in transition is one, first off, you have to get over the piece of identity. I'll go back to that part. Like my identity definitely was wrapped up in sports a little bit, and I'll be honest. Because I spent basically 30 years of my life, 20 something years of my life doing something. And then when you're done, everybody's asking you about that thing.
Yeah.
Or what's next, or blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, dang, like that's always a topic of conversation. And so in that moment, I had to make a decision, like, I'm going to reinvent myself to the point where the conversation becomes around something else.
Yeah.
Because I never wanted to be the guy that was like always talking about like the glory days. I just never wanted to be that. I could occasionally, but like if I was like every time you hang out with me, I was talking about that. I'm like, bro, what are you doing now? You know, I wanted
Back
to be
in my day.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so that became my mindset of like, okay, cool. Like what do I have to do to recreate it? But I needed somebody else to look at. I needed someone else to follow and mirror and get around great people. Because in sports, you have those guys. You're on TV. You get to watch them. You get to study their 30 for 30s. You get to do all that kind of stuff. In business, it's a little bit different. You have to be a little bit more strategic because it's all over and it's tons of niches, right? Like you kind of have to figure out what you want.
Yeah.
Whereas sports is like football. Like it's very easy, like what the sport was and position and so forth, right? So that became, you kind of hone in, going back to the sniper analogy of like, this is what I want. This is what I want to look like. And I'll piece together like these 3 individuals. I want to represent this in this industry with this characteristics. That's what I want to be. And so I'll study all 3 of them and try to put them all together and become me, right? So that's kind of where I would say in transition period.
And that's good, man. That's really, there's some substance there. And I hope people take the chance to really soak in all that you just said. How did you end up getting connected with Apex?
Yeah, so funny story. So my fiance now, but girlfriend at the time, used to work for Emilet on the marketing team, and social media and all that kind of stuff. Did all this stuff from marketing. And when I was transitioning out of insurance, I was like, man, like, so I hopped on the phone with Ed and I was like, man, like I'll go anywhere. I just want to be around people that are the top 1% in multiple areas in business, like that are not just in insurance. I want to be like multiple, like very good at it. I was like, how do I get around people like that? I'll go anywhere in the country. I'll do anything I need to do. I just want to be around it. Because I knew, like, going back to the thing of like, I just want to be in the room.
Yeah.
If I can be in the room, I have somebody to look at. If I have someone to look at, then it's easy for me to imitate that, right? Day after day after day after day. Eventually, I'm going to get some of it. And so he was like, man, he asked where I was at. And I was like, I'm in Dallas. He's like, have you heard of Ryan Stewman? I was like, no, I have not. Funny enough, the insurance office I was at was literally, his office was across the highway. So it was like so close. And so once I found him, I reached out through a DM and I was like, man, like what's kind of the thing? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And I started following him for a little bit. Then I was like, I'd love to see kind of what more you guys do, like what that looks like. And we sort of had a conversation and one thing led to the next and then ended up being basically joined with it and being a part of it. And I was like, okay, I like this. I like being around these top guys in tons of different industries, trying to keep growing, trying to keep developing. And the mindset kind of was the same, like, hey, we're going to work, we're going to focus, like somewhat that same cloth to some degree. And I was like, okay, I can lean into that. I can follow pieces of that and replicate some of that. And I was like, okay, perfect, let's do that. And so that's how it happened. So Ed connected me to that. And then, so forth.
Just a bunch of big names. I love it. I love it. Let me ask you a question. So now so I know Apex serves a lot of blue collar, like a lot of blue collar businesses, which is the businesses that we like, right? I mean, with a profitable cleaner, we're in one of the segments, but blue collar. What are some top mistakes that you see? Because I'm sure you don't consult the small businesses. So what mistakes do you usually see them making that somebody listening to this might be like, oh, I just fell into that?
I think as you start to scale, there's pieces and elements that have to be in place, which usually is consistent of systems, right? You can have the right people, obviously putting the right people in the right seats. It's a big piece. But the system's in place to allow it to run efficiently, right? If you're going, especially if you're the owner of the business, most people get into business to have the freedom of life, right? They don't get it to they do it maybe because it's a passion. They want to do that. But ultimately, it's because they want to be able to live life with the people they care about the most and do the things they want to do.
Yeah.
But when they get into that, usually the first couple of years is not that. It's usually the reward later. But that transition into later has to be implemented with systems. Because if not, they're always going to be the one 12-hour, 13-hour, 14-hour, 15-hour days every day for 10 years. Yeah. And there's work, that work's still required early on for sure. But you can be smart with it, that you continue to do it with systems to allow the pieces and processes to just let it become a machine, right? Like you can come in, it can still run without you. That makes it to a PE firm, if you ever want to sell it, way more profitable. The multiple goes 10 times up, it seems like, from that aspect. And then also too, you can replicate that so much easier. Say you want to buy another cleaning company. Boom, I'm going to implement the same process I have here over here. Boom. Boom. And then now you're not having to reinvent this wheel. You know what works. And you don't have to necessarily be there. You just have to be the one implementing it. Yeah. And so that becomes, I think, the transition people don't think about is the system, like leaning into the system more so of how to make it a machine versus I'm just going to work harder than everybody else.
Yeah.
We got to implement the smart part too as we get to that phase of how do we go from this position to the next one? And that's because your hard work, you have so much time. You do.
I think people, when you say systems, people automatically think of technology. Are you talking specifically on just for those listening, are you talking specifically on technology, or when you say systems, are you talking about SOPs? Are you talking about mapping that? Like,
correct. Yeah.
Okay. So not just technology, correct?
Exactly.
So if someone's listening to this, how can I audit my current systems right now? Or what could I do to begin the conversation and start maybe finding some of those gaps where I can go, maybe I do need some help?
Yeah, for sure. I think what you have to do is a personal audit or a business audit, essentially, of your time and what you're doing in your processes, right? I had a buddy that did it in extreme level. He strapped a GoPro to his chest and had his VA record and put all of his time spent in categories for the time allotted for that for 2 weeks. And so he's like, you spent 15 hours doing this, 20 hours doing this, blah, 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 like that. And he's like, I wasted in 2 weeks 30 hours doing stuff I didn't need to do. And he's like, I need to fix the system, right? Like that's what it became. So that's an extreme level of it. But I think the audit part is the important piece. Is like, what does my day look like? What tasks, and over a week period, not just one day, because sometimes we have like a good week and we're like, bro, I crushed it. And the next week I'm like doing stuff I shouldn't be doing, right? So like I'm putting a time frame in which I kind of get my standard day or week, and then I'm writing, okay, where am I spending my time? Can I put this out to somebody else? Can I delegate this to somebody? Can I even, speaking of a VA, can I get a VA to do some of this stuff and then me review it and make sure it's done and then do it from there? But it saves me maybe an hour that day. Over 2 weeks, that's a lot. That's 14 hours I saved, right? So like all of a sudden I'm naturally gaining back my time, but I'm also implementing a system. Because if I get replaced and someone comes in, that VA knows exactly what to do, can replace that for him too, right? So like I would start looking at it that way. Auditing time is the best way, I think, to start.
Auditing personal time?
Personal
in
time
the business,
in the business,
and then also,
and then we're all human beings too. So like, there's elements of like, you may get a personal call, you may get whatever. You have to deal with something late at night. Like, what does that look? Can I offload some of my personal stuff so I can be more present at home to actually be present versus like I gotta go home, I gotta do all this stuff for the house just to keep it in order.
Yeah,
right. Like then you get to be like, I'm gonna work really hard. That's what I was taking care of, and I get to be present with my family.
Yeah,
like so being smart tactically, really.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. My virtual executive assistant, like this last year, did like all of my Christmas shopping, and
I love it.
Like I hate Christmas shopping, right? Like my wife typically does it for her family, but then I have to do it for my wife, right? And then I'm always last minute guy. And I remember like it was October, and I was like, "This is what we're doing. This is what I need to buy. This is where I need you to send it to." And it didn't. I don't know how much time it saved me, but it saved me a ton of stress.
Yeah.
And I believe stress plays into energy, and then that plays into priority, et cetera, et cetera. I want to talk about the opposite end of what you just said. So you asked a good question about what are some things where these businesses might have gaps. Where do you see like the separator companies succeed? Like what do you see a commonality among those really top performing companies or leaders? And what are some trends or things that you've seen?
Yeah. I think companies that last have a really good culture, because as you continue to elevate and transition, and that's going back to that system piece, like it won't last if you don't have the culture or the aspect to continue to make it last, right? And so leaders, for that matter, the leaders that have that piece of it, they value the people, right? And empowering them, helping them understand like I think the best way to put it is if we're going to walk into a company, and if I had a level of culture in which somebody was removed, right, the system should keep it still going, but the power of the culture should affect it.
Yeah, well said.
You know what I mean? Like the system should keep it, but the people that you want in there is you want them to be like ride or die for you. But you have to create that because people deal with emotions. They have their own problems. They have their own things that happen in their life. That every business problem usually is a result of someone not showing up from a personal problem they have.
Yes.
Right. And so if we can create a culture where that personal problem is addressed and in a healthy way pushes them to understand that, and the way you develop that is the vision of the company has to be big enough for everybody else to fit in. Because if it's not big enough if they can't see their dreams accomplished in your vision, they'll tap out when it gets hard. But if they can, you can lean on that and press that, and you can push them that way. But if you don't spend the time hey, like what I like to do with certain people and like understanding is like, okay, cool. Well, let's have a meeting one-on-one. What are your dreams and goals for your life personally? Forget the business, whatever. I just want to know. And then what are your dreams and goals for the business? And see the correlate. Is like, is there any correlation? If there's not, you need to help make that connection for them because they may not be able to. But if you can, and it does, and they can tie that, you also tie it to the business, which ultimately creates a culture of like, they feel ownership, which is what you want, right? Like that's everybody wants to feel like they matter. Everybody wants to feel like they're heard. Everyone wants to feel like they're making a difference in the world and your company's doing it. Like if they don't have that, then they'll just take the next high paying job or the next, that's tough. We'll go over here.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
But you can't create a company that sustains. Everything's not perfect. Right. So those hard times you got to press. If that's not established then and you need to press forward and you go through that, the people need to be there for that too.
Man, I think that's so wonderful. And I don't want to go over something that you just said. Create a vision for your company that's so big that your team's vision fits within that. Can you kind of break that down a little bit more for people listening? Because I think owners within companies get so fixed on the company vision and that's it, right? Not realizing that culture, the people, and just the feel of the company in general needs to all encompass under that one company vision. So you said make the company vision so big that your people's vision fits under that. Talk to me about that.
Imagine over 300 cleaning executives, all under one roof, ready to connect, collaborate, and build a community. Join your hosts, James Harper and Angel Sandoval, 11 keynote speakers and 8 expert panelists sharing the blueprint to scale your life and business. Head over to event.cleaningprofits.com for all the details. For being listeners, use code CEO30 for a 30% discount. See you there.
Yeah. I think the way we do that strategically, right, is getting to know the people. I think what happens when companies get too big, people become numbers. And that's the part of the system that we have to lean into the personal side for sure. Because it can never get to where you're a number. If you get to a number, the buy-in's not as high, right? It's just not. And so when you're as a company creating a vision for your team or for your vision for where you're going, number one, it has to be like charging, right? It can't just be like, we want to help a lot of people. Okay, there's no depth to that, right? Like, what is that? What's going to move me to act? Okay, cool. If that's big enough to move me to act, then I'm going to, how do I incorporate my people? How do I pull their visions of what they want to accomplish? It's not just about making my top line money, making me a multi-millionaire. How do I recreate that and how do I get them what they want, right? And there's certain things that you do that can do that, like simple stuff. Like, right, you can, one, everybody needs, I don't care if they're the top performer that does their own thing. They still need to be like talked to. They still need to be like touched, if that makes sense. Like they need like eye to eye time. Same thing with people that are brand new, right? So like all the different phases. There's time requirements to each, obviously, because no one likes to be super micromanaged if they're a high performer. It's like, let me do my thing. Let me go do what I do. I'll do that. I don't need to sit in meetings all day, right? Like whatever that thing is for those guys. But other people may need, like I want to know that I'm here and you know that I'm here. And I want to know that. Then I'll work for you, right? Like that's how they work. So I think it really comes down to understanding the people after the vision's established. Now, I'll go to the vision's established part and how to create the vision big enough. I think most of us have these human needs that we want to meet. Everybody there's 7 of them. And if we can create a vision that hits at least 3 or 4 of them, we have complete buy-in from individuals, right? And so if I can create one that's that big that they can lean into and it hits all of those things, right? Then ultimately what ends up happening is people get excited about the vision you created. And when they can get excited about I'll say it this way. If your vision as the company doesn't help create higher visions for the people within it, then it's not big enough, right? Because if this big vision that we have for the company should inspire people to dream bigger within our company, because then they'll be creative, they'll be innovative, they'll think different ways. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? What if we tried this? And all in line with trying to get the big vision. But if it's not inspiring enough, it's not big enough, it's like, well, the worst feeling in any business is like, I'm stuck, we're capped. Like, there's only so much to grow. Like, I'm just mundane for us forever now, right? Like, that gets boring, especially for like type A type personalities or whatever. I don't care if you're not type A. You always want to see like, what's next? What's the next level? As kids, we grew up playing video games. Like, all right, level 1 beat, going to level 2. We all want the next level. We don't want to know that we're on a level 100 and there's no more levels left. We usually put the game away and we stop playing.
Yeah.
Right. So like the vision has to be big enough to where it allows us to keep playing the game, and we keep that in front of people. I think that's the biggest thing as a companies too. Once you create that vision in the company, you have to keep it in front, and you have to keep it inspiring. You have to keep it motivating to where they keep going. And it's not just like, let's just put it up on the wall and never talk about it. Right. It's got to be like inundated in the culture of the business. Because if not, we need motivation. We just do. It's like Tony Robbins talks about it. It's like a warm bath. Like you need to shower, you need to clean yourself. You need motivation frequently to remind yourself of why you do what you do, and to keep your mind focused. Because as humans, the biggest thing or struggle we all have is we forget. It's hard for us to remember. And so, for that, even good things, a lot of times we remember the bad things more than the good. But in those aspects, if we can remember why are we working so hard? If you ask that question, you probably haven't instilled enough frequently of the vision of why you're doing it in a company. If your people are like, what's the point? Okay, that should be a huge red flag of, we have to talk about vision, make it big, make it tangible to where they can see it. Because right now they can't. And as soon as you can't see a vision, in the Bible it talks like, without a vision, people perish. If your people cannot see your vision, over time, that company will lose sight. It will slowly perish.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the key, is like, you have to stay on it. Like for example, if you had kids, right? And they have a vision, they have a goal, and you know how to get it, but they're like struggling with it, right? And they're like, I don't know, today I don't want to do it. But you know, like that's truly deep down what they want to do, but they don't want, like you're gonna talk in that moment. You're like, hey, let me remind you of like you're gonna do that. I think we have to carry that same approach to business, but they're just older people. I think we all forget sometimes in business, just in life in general, is we're all kids, just have a higher number and we look older. Yeah. We're all kids inside, right? Like we all have those same things. And so we have to treat it that way. And I think that's where we forget sometimes. We're like, oh, they're 50, they got it figured out. That's not how it works.
You said that the vision should touch 7. There's 7 human needs. Is that what you said? Mm-hmm. And that a vision should touch anywhere between 3 to 4 of them.
Yeah.
Do you know the list off the top of your head by any chance?
I knew you were probably gonna ask me that. I don't have it.
As soon as you said it, you were like,
yeah, I was like, man, I don't have it memorized. I have them on a list somewhere. But
what is it? What are they called?
One is
what
safety, or like security.
Yeah.
One is purpose. I know Tony Robbins talks about.
Yeah,
this.
and I just can't
and
remember.
It's so good. Google the 7 traits to human elements, and like it'll come up.
Okay.
But that is good though. Like you don't need to like check the box for all 7. Mm-hmm. You just really need to touch 3 to 4 to really keep the unit motivated.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody listening to this to like grab your vision statement and grab the 7 and see how many of those statements you actually hit, and see, because I think a lot of people sometimes when they're writing their vision statement or even thinking of their own vision for their business, it's just more from the personal standpoint, which is okay. But I bet if you look at it that way, I don't know how many vision statements right now would hit at least 3 to 4.
Yeah, because most of them are too broad. They're not deep enough.
Yeah, totally.
And it's too hard to be like I said, like, we're going to make an impact on the world, vision statement. I'm like, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's good. It's not bad. But like, there's, for your people, if you haven't on the back end of that, like, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to get lost, right? Yeah. Like, I won't know what that means. And if it doesn't hit home in me, I'm not going to drive for that when it's hard and it's late. Like, I'm going to go home to my family.
Yeah.
Right. And we want to go home to our family, but if there's something tied to it, like there's a reason why I'm here, I can feel it, that's a game changer. And that's what you want to instill. And I think that goes into maybe a different word sometimes people have to understand, is like from vision to mission.
Yes.
Like make it the company mission. Like, what mission are we trying to accomplish? I think vision sometimes is like this thing that we throw on the wall of like, this is what we want to accomplish in the future. And it's so far out there that nobody relates to it right now. And so mission is like, all right, here's the assignment. This is what we're doing. Let's go. Like, and we're not stopping until we hit it. Like, I think it's, if we view it more of a mission, I think it helps a little bit.
What's your vision and mission right now, man?
Yeah, man. I'm refining mine right now. I had one. And then this past year, it changed a lot with having a fiance and being engaged and everything. I was like, all right, I got to change it up a little bit, right? And so for me, like the mission for me in a lot of ways, and it came from like even in sports, I'll use that one because it was a lot more clearer for me, was number one, my mission, part of the mission was I wanted to be the one.
Yeah.
Like that was and Ed Milet talks about this actually a lot.
Totally.
And it's like, that was the thing. Like when I say it, I get goosebumps thinking about it. It's like, I want to be the one, right? And then the flip side of that is the imagery of when I get to heaven, I want to like, and I meet the person of who I could have been. I want to know who he is and be like, I look identical. And if I don't, I'm going to be pissed. Right? Like, so for me, it's like, I want to be everything God's called me to be. And which to me, a flip way of backward saying is like, I want to be the one. I want to be the one in my family that creates it. I want to be the one that became the person he was supposed to be to the full capacity. Didn't leave him any gas in the tank. Like he put it all on the table. That was always my mission. That still is my mission for sure. But like there's other elements to it now, I think. But ultimately, that's what drives me. That's what pushes me late at night. That's what I'm like, I can't procrastinate that because there is a time that's coming and I don't know when it is. And number one, I impact people every day like we all do. And so if I'm not in my mindset of mission, then I may not have fulfilled this moment. Right? Yeah. So then I miss it to that mark. Right? Yeah. And I can't go back and change that, unfortunately, unless, you know what I mean? So like for me, I just wanted to be the one, really was the best way to put it.
When do y'all have a date?
Yeah, November 22nd.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Coming up quick.
Ooh, here in Dallas?
It's in Terrell. So I guess 40 minutes from here.
Nice.
A little out there on like a nice little ranch venue and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, brother.
Thank you.
We'll have to do a round 2 podcast after you're married, man.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
Check back.
With her here too.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Shoot.
Yeah, that would be sick.
I'm trying to get on some podcasts myself too.
Oh yeah, we'll recommend a few of them. That's good, man. That's good. And so your vision and mission have changed since. What's up, Profitable Cleaner listeners? Quick question for you. Are you using 5 to 7 different platforms just to manage the everyday operations of your commercial cleaning company? If so, let us help you consolidate that into one platform. Introducing you uSource. Go to usource.com, book your free demo today, and actually get started on your trial for 60 days. No charge for 60 days, all from time and attendance to reporting, vendor management, operations, sales. It's time you stop using 5 to 7 platforms and consolidate into one. So listeners, don't forget, go to usource.com and start your account today. Mm-hmm. I like that. Yeah. And you're kind of refining it. I also wonder, just out of curiosity for you, do you feel like when somebody joins and starts following a mentor, do they recommend you to have your own personal vision, like right off the bat defined? Or is it okay for those listening to this? Maybe I don't know my mission or vision, but I do have a good team around me, and maybe I just kind of have to sit in that environment for long enough to then start generating it. Yeah. I have a feeling that with social media influencers, like, oh, you have to have this vision. Oh, you have to know where you're going. Yeah. And sometimes it's like, dude, I don't know.
Yeah.
And you're just in that moment.
Well, that's a great question and a great point too. I think it is something that you're always adding to it. And as soon as it becomes stale, it no longer becomes relevant. And I don't think it's a mission anymore. Right? And so like it can never not be growing. It can never not be evolving because you evolve. Right? So I can't have the same mission I had when I was 10. Yeah. Right? And so like there's certain pieces that I have to add to it. So I think for the people that don't feel like they have one, I think you're in the same boat as someone that does. Because they have to do it too, right? Like so the reality is you're not behind. You're not behind at all. In fact, like it has to be an endless game, an endless pursuit of where you're going. And as soon as it's not, I think whoever you are on that scale, you missed it.
That's really well said.
I mean, it's so interesting this with a few guests this week. We had somebody say, if you don't know, don't grow, in the sense of like, if you don't know where you're going, don't overdo it either. Just kind of sit and figure it out, you know? And then we had somebody else, what exactly did they say? But it was basically around those lines where he's like, there's no negative game. You're gaining from the moment you're born. So whether you feel like you're going backwards, it's actually not not possible, because you actually can only go forward. So it sounds very similar to what you just said. Like, you're in the same boat as somebody that in paper looks like they've got it down, everything got it down, the same level. Yeah. Let me ask you a question. So what's next for you?
Yeah. I think for me, there's a couple of different things. Going into obviously the season with Engaged Part, there's a whole other side of like seeing the vision of what I want for her too, not just for me, right? Yeah. The vision has to expand, right? Yeah. I've got to get bigger. I've got to get larger to where all the same things can fit. It's a small company, really, of how you view it. Like, this is where we're going. We're the first person, a part of this culture that we're creating. And then you get kids and they have the vision that fits into it too, right? Like, what we stand for as a family is going to come next, like all that kind of stuff. And so for me, I'm looking at that, and I've actually started creating I call it a legacy document, where ultimately it's got like core principles or core values, however you want to say it, and then certain principles that I want to live by and I want a family to represent. And so, and having different elements and also different, even like books to read for different topics, all documented. So if I were to die, I could hand this document to my kids and they know what we stand for as a Symmank. And they know different pieces and books to start to at least get them to a certain spot. And then also like quotes that are like powerful, that are like, okay, I may not like 10 of them, but I like that one. Yeah. They have it. They don't have to go searching for it, which I spent time searching for it. So it's like I'm coming back with information I've spent my life trying to figure out. Like, hey, you just get a little head start or a space of that. And so it's all in one place versus like, all right, pick any book on the shelf, right? Like, most of us don't like to read most of the time, right? So it's like, as a kid, I did not like to. Now I like reading a lot more than I did when I was a kid, for sure. Which is good. Crazy. And I don't think I ever read a full book till I got to college. And then after college, I've probably read hundreds. Yeah. So it doesn't make any sense.
Same.
It's wild.
And then you end up picking up the one thing you needed. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
You called it a legacy doc?
Yeah.
That's funny, sick. Man. I think that's I have something very similar, but I call it when I go doc. So
nice.
But I like mine sounds a lot more morbid. I'm like, so I started that like 7 years ago, man.
That's so cool.
And that's so funny. I've never heard anyone else say that.
How often do you work on it?
Actually quite often, if I'm being honest. And it's this Google document and it's like, oh, I like this Marcus Aurelius quote, right? Like, I don't want to pass down all like this pen and paper to my boys. So it's like, okay, I need to take that from Ryan Holiday's YouTube. And then now there's like YouTube videos in there. Hopefully that will live forever. Yeah. And all of that. So yeah, it probably happens. Like, I probably am in it every 45 days.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. But I'm going to retitle it to like.
We're going to have to rebrand that when I go doc.
Yeah, totally.
That's funny.
Yeah, totally.
That's very cool though. I like to see how parents think, or like future parents, and how the current dad like thinks already. You're already thinking like that, and that's very impressive. And yeah, man, we're excited to see what's in the future. Any final questions, brother?
No, I want to thank you, man. I do have one kind of personal ask. But
go ahead.
Yeah.
Dude, if you were to be talking to a 7-year-old boy right there that wants to be a future NFL kicker someday, what words of inspiration would you give him?
And by 7-year-old, his name's Grayson.
Grayson, okay.
Yeah, so he can get his personal shout out, bro.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, Grayson, what I would say is continue. I mean, we talked on, if you've listened to this whole thing, like, you have to keep the vision of what you want in front of you, no matter what is ahead of you. Number one. Number two is lean into like not only the why you want it, but like the training, the hours and things like that. That's required. So don't think that it's I guess I'll say it this way. It's like all your hard work will pay off. Like, don't forget that. Like, it will, no matter who's watching, no matter who's noticing, no matter what coach sees it, no matter what coach doesn't see it, no matter what, if your parents see it or not, like, it's a vision of what you want to accomplish and like something that you can do. And I will say too, as well, like, if you're ever dealing with the aspect of like, oh, could I really do it? The percentages are so low. I would take that mindset out completely of what you do, because the percentages only apply to people that pay attention to them. Right. And so if you don't pay attention to them, you can be the one, you can be the person that creates that. And so don't ever forget it. Be the number. Don't be the percentage of someone that's not. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Awesome, man.
Yeah,
I really,
fire.
dude, I really appreciate that, man. And he like feeds off of
gonna
the
lose his
leadership
marbles.
and motivation stuff already at like 7 years old.
I love that.
Right. So like the fact that you just did that is going to be it's going to be a life changer for him. That's something he's going to watch for years from now, no matter what happens. Right.
Yeah.
Like kicker, NFL. No, I
When
don't
he
care about
sees
any
he's
of that.
gonna
I care
lose
about
it.
the habits that come along with
Yeah.
it. We're trying to get there.
100%.
So-
Can't wait for him to see this and be like, yeah.
No, I'm gonna
I know
actually,
how-
I'm gonna record the reaction video. and
Dude,
send it
please.
to you,
That'd be
man.
so cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
I have one more ask.
Yeah.
Not for me. Actually, we're going to do it one more time with the camera. We like to do random things like that during the podcast.
I love that.
Again, I love it. You're about to get married. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate the journey of getting to the altar, right? Getting to the marriage. So we don't know when we're going to publish this. You don't know when we're going to publish this. That's the beautiful part about this. This might come out tomorrow. This might come out in 4 months. So here's the question for you. If you had one message to your future wife, what would it be?
Dude, that's a good one, man.
And don't worry, we'll clip it and send it to you.
Yeah, that's good. Man, if I had one message, that's a deep one, man. I'd try to keep it as I could talk for hours on this one. That's why I'm trying to keep it
Don't do
simple.
your thing, bro.
I think I would probably keep it simple and just say, like, I'm like, babe, I got you. Everything that you're dreaming of, everything that you're going after, everything that you have, like, we're going to make it happen. Like, don't question it. Don't question the vision where we're going. We're going to make it through. We're going to make it happen. And don't lose sight of where that is or where we're going. That's probably what I would say. I could talk for so long about that, but yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Sometimes the short is the words, right? Like that, you just said a lot with so little. So I appreciate you participating on that.
Oh, absolutely.
Dude, thank you so much for being here. We truly do appreciate it. May God bless you. We'll be praying for you.
Thank you.
And guys, we'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks so much, brother.
Yeah, appreciate it.